This month will be all about love, but we're taking a little bit of a spin on the idea for the title of the series that I call Love and Liberation. So of course we have Valentine's Day, and that's all about love. But February is also known as the month for Black History Month, and that's all about celebrating freedom and love. We also have this month the season of nonviolence, which begins with the assassination of Gandhi and then ends with the assassination of Martin Luther King. It's 60-some days that have become a time to be able to look at how we become, as a community, as individuals, more peace and love in the world. So we're going to kind of play with all of this month, all of these different areas about how we as a community, how we as individuals can really understand what love is, but more than that, how love moves in us and how we express love in the world. That's where it all begins. How do we do that? I gotta tell you all, this talk for me was a struggle. And I kept writing it and rewriting it, and I kept picking out biblical passage and another biblical passage. I've never had such struggle preparing a Sunday service before. And I really was trying to understand what was happening with me. Even as early as this morning, I got up at the crack of dawn to still go over this, and I thought, what is wrong? And finally, Veronica, my wife, said, you know what, I think you're trying to control this too much. Maybe you're trying to control it too much. Maybe you just need to let your God speak. And it sort of just hit me. This is what is needed this morning. So I'm going to do something that I normally don't do. I have never done in my ministerial career, probably even in my professional career. I'm just going to wing it. And I think that's what I was being called to do with this subject in particular. Because when I started to think about what my journey has been with love, it has been a journey of controlling. It's been a journey of me trying to figure out and guard myself from being able to truly be in that space of vulnerability. I've talked about love here before. We talked a little bit about love during Christmas. One of the Advent qualities or themes is love. And so we talked about that during that time, a little bit about what that meant. And I shared with you all a little bit about my journey then, and I shared a little bit more about kind of my love journey on New Year's Eve as well. But I think for me, what it's been is a way for me to not be able to fully be in my presence and in my oneness. And I don't think that I am alone in that. All of us have come to this time and place with a history. And that history is premised on how we have interpreted love, how we have been shown love, or how we have not been shown love. So for me, in my journey with love, I was always, now that I can understand the control, I was always in fear of it. I was always wanting to get ahead of it. I was always wanting to be able to not be hurt by it. Because many of us come from backgrounds, not many of us, I'm going to dare say all of us at some level or another, come from a background where we've been hurt by love. And maybe that's something where we've been hurt by a previous relationship, romantic relationship. Maybe it's a way which we've hurt another that we still have some guilt about. Maybe it's our parents, the way in which they taught us what love was or wasn't. And many times it was warped. They were doing what they had been taught. It wasn't necessarily something that our parents did to be cruel, though some of us may think that was their intention, and maybe it was. But for the most part, Our parents did what they were taught. They were in this cog, in this machine, to be able to do what they knew, and they did the best that they could. So my parents, for example, were involved for years in a toxic relationship. My dad was coming and going. My dad wasn't really there for the most part. And so the message that I was learning was, is that love? I don't know that I want that. What is love? When we start to look at the relationship that we had in the past, we have to ask ourselves, what did we learn from those patterns? I'm bringing this up not to tell y'all my business. I'm bringing this up to say that we all have gone through this in life, where there's certain things that have marked us. Maybe you were that kid whose father said, "You are a boy. Why do you want to look like that? Why do you want to dress like that? Why do you want to love like that?" Maybe you were somebody whose body looked different, and their form of telling you they loved you was telling you to change what you looked like. All of these things, whether we realize it or not, are in our subconscious and are prohibiting us from fully experiencing the Spirit. I tell you this today because we talk about love and unity as this beautiful, wonderful, grandiose thing, which it is. But when we start to try to place it into the world as something that we do, because love is an action as well, when we do that, it becomes a little bit more difficult. That's when the rubber hits the road, right? When we have to figure out, how do we do this? And all of these things in the background, that's what's stopping us from fully being able to do this. We see the outpicturing of the world with crisis, with war, with famine, with all of these things, and we look and say, we need peace, but yet there's no peace within us. There's that healing that needs to take place around love before we can actually begin to see a different world. This is the idea that I want to share with you all today, is about what messages of love do you have in your heart? What hurts around love do you have in your heart? And what needs to be healed so that you can fully be the light and the presence that we have each been called here to be? We have all been called to be the presence. And so what does that mean? Part of it is about creating this space where we understand who we truly are. I want to talk to you a little bit about from a passage that did come to me this morning. And it's actually one of my favorites. And I think it illustrates really well what we're talking about here this morning. The passage is the woman who was hemorrhaging for years, 12 years, she was bleeding. And so what that meant for her was that she was ostracized. She was not part of the community. In those times, for a woman to bleed, even for menstruation, they were tainted, they were put off, they could not be part of the community. So imagine this woman for 12 years bleeding. She was a social pariah. She didn't have relationships, she didn't have friendships, she was ostracized. If we really think about the social repercussions of what this woman is coming to this story with, that's what we're talking about. So this is from Mark chapter 5, verse 25. Now there was a woman who had been suffering for hemorrhages for 12 years, and she had endured much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had. And she was no better, but rather she grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. For she said, "If I but touch his clothes, I will be made well." Immediately, her hemorrhage stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Immediately aware that power had gone forth from him, Jesus turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in on you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?' This is impossible," right? He looked all around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." What's happening here in this passage? If you imagine being this social pariah, being this person who's disconnected, being this person who's lonely, being this person who's depressed, being this person who doesn't know their place in the world. Maybe it's a big extreme, but many of us have been there. Many of us are probably there in our own form, where we're hurting, where life is hard, where we've believed the thoughts that have been placed in our head for our entire lives. We're not good enough. We'll never be good enough. You can't do that because of your age. You can't do that because of how you look. All of the thoughts that we have been told, whether we realize it or not, cloud our ability to really truly inhabit our spiritual space. And so our job then becomes, first and foremost, to be clear and to be open, to pray and to meditate and open ourselves up to what are the messages that we carry within us that we must heal. That is the thing that is first and foremost in terms of a practical Christianity for us, is to be able to pray and meditate and ask Spirit, ask our inner guidance, what are we carrying with us that is prohibiting us from our freedom, that is prohibiting us from our liberation? And so in this story, she decides that she's going to let go. She's going to lose all these chains that bind her. She's going to claim, no matter what people have said, you'll never get well, you'll never get well, this is how life is, get used to it. She's decided that no, she's going to break the chains. And so she steps forward in faith. She steps forward knowing that there is a better tomorrow. She steps forward knowing that there's truth in her that is waiting to just burst forth. And she touches his cloak. We make the mistake and think that Jesus healed. Jesus didn't heal her exactly. Jesus was part of this energetic resonance that she understood. I'm going to get in on that. I want a piece of that. I can ride that wave and be that with him. The only way that she healed was because she believed who she was at her core, that she could heal, that she was worthy of healing, and that she was going to heal. And so that is where the healing takes place. It was not Jesus that healed her. And if we look at other places in the Bible, Jesus is clear about this. The healing takes place by our mind and our heart understanding that we can heal, not from the miracles alone. So we stand in this story as our own lives about where we are in this journey of healing and how love factors into that, because her love for herself, her love for her life, her love to believe that I deserve something better created that energetic space for her healing. And so we're all in this here together. All of us are in this journey in some way or another, because whether we want to admit or not, we all have a very warped sense of love that we need to overcome, that we need to let go of that error thought. I do want to share with you something that I came across from Eric Butterworth. And he talks about, Eric Butterworth was a Unity minister for years in New York City, very well known, prolific, wrote 1 million books, including Discover the Power Within You, which is the book that actually brought me to truth. I always say that was the book. And here's what he says. I want us to kind of take this apart a little bit and really open yourselves up to what these words are sharing with us today. He says, for many years, I've been on a personal crusade, challenging the belief that love is a commodity, something you find and something you make and something you give and receive, again leading into the delusion that you would be living an empty and starved life, primarily because you were deprived of love and affection as a child. I've challenged the action in psychology that the greatest of all human needs is to be loved. It is suggested that the one who is bereft of affection early in life will grow up to be one who's not very affectionate as an adult. But again, this implied that love is a quantity to receive and be stored up. It implies that the most happy and secure people are those who have the greatest accumulation of love. And the friendless, lonely person is the one who has scant supply of love in store. This is what we've been taught, and this is what we believe. But in my thesis, he says, and because God is love and each of us is created in the image and likeness of his love, each and every person is created in and of love. Love is the ever-present reality of our nature, and we are told, behold, I have loved you an everlasting love. The entire love potential of God is within you all the time. You can never have any more, and you can never have any less. You're always loved from within. So the great need is not to be loved, but to love. So you see, we become aware that love is not an object to possess. We find ourselves forever searching for a lover or a partner out there in this consciousness. Love is the quest, the pursuit, the capture of possession. He tells us love is not a commodity. It's a process. It's a cosmic process. It's something that comes from deep within us. And so by us focusing on all these things outside of ourselves, even the hurts that we have, we're not allowing for spirit to come through. So part of our journey today is, again, as I said, being able to claim what is there in our subconscious, the hurts that we have, and the ways in which we can heal those things to be able to open ourselves up to be channels of true love. I want to take this into meditation, so if I can ask folks to join me here. So we can practice this here today. Love is a divine attribute. It's an idea of the mind. And I invite you to close your eyes and take a few deep cleansing breaths and really vibe into this idea that love is this wonderful, beautiful, cosmic process. God is love, and love is God, and it is different than human love. We are talking here today about making the distinction between divine love and human love. That we raise our awareness about divine love. We raise our awareness about the divine love that exists within us, that heals us, that is an outpouring and outpicturing that heals others. Like the woman bleeding, sad, distraught, torn, lonely, confused. We step forward today, claiming divine love, seeking to love ourselves, and seeking to love others. Allowing for forgiveness, allowing for the healing of trauma, allowing for the healing of the messages that we may have received around love that are clouding our ability to have human connection and relationship, to have spiritual connection and relationship. I invite you this morning, take a deep breath, open up your mind and open up your heart and open up your core where courage and creativity resides, and ask your higher self the question, what do I need to heal around love? What do I need to heal about love? What are the messages that I have received in my lifetime that no longer serve me around love? And what might I replace in their stead? How might I be that channel of light, of flow, of process, of possibility, of creation, of wonder, of freedom? And let's take a moment in the silence as we allow these questions to settle in our soul and allow the answers to beautifully, gracefully, gently, lovingly step forward to comfort you, and allow in the silence.